Unlimited Perspectives, Episode 17, with speaker and author Emille Bryant.
One of the old childhood sayings that I learned growing up is, in the end, everything will be okay. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
This is Unlimited Perspectives. Powerful ideas, advice, and guidance to help you create the life of your dreams. If you're ready to make some new decisions, you're ready for Unlimited Perspectives with Bill Sklerdowski, and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Episode 17 of Unlimited Perspectives, helping to keep your mind and spirit unlimited. Bill Sklerdowski here as always. Thank you again so much for joining us. We have a really great guest today. His name's Emille Bryant. Came to me through a very unusual story. Maybe I'll share that later on. Not really important how I found him or he found me. What is important is the story that he has to share about his life, his career. He is a 20-year Air Force veteran and now in private life, and is now making a career turn toward being a motivational speaker and author, and, well, you'll hear more about that as we go. He's just a super interesting character, and I'm sure you will enjoy our chat with him. And, in fact, I'm already thinking about when to have him back on as he proceeds with his career out there. I know he's going to do great things. This week I posted something on my Facebook page, which has already gotten a little bit of comment and funny responses from friends. But it's one of those, word poster things that you see on Facebook so often. Mine said this: be present, make love, make tea, avoid small talk, embrace conversation, buy a plant, water it, make your bed, make somebody else's bed, have a smart mouth and a quick wit, run, make art, create, swim in the ocean, swim in the rain, take chances, ask questions, make mistakes, learn, know your worth, love fiercely, forgive quickly, let go of what doesn't make you happy, grow. And I thought to myself, boy, with the exception of the make your bed thing, that's everything I need to know about life. And no, in my fifth decade of life, I still don't make my bed every day. I'm sorry, I have to admit that. But nope, I don't do it and probably never will. But the rest of it is really, really good. Take chances. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I added the don't be afraid part. But make mistakes. How else are you going to learn, right? And know your worth, which basically means know that you are worth it. What is it? Well, it is whatever you choose it to be. You are worth love, you are worth abundance, you are worth respect, you are worth all of that. I'm in a bit of a philosophical mood today, aren't I? Wow, that's different for me. So let's move ahead. I don't want to keep you waiting for this interview with Emille Bryant, who I found so interesting and who's going to share his story with us and how he kind of embraces all the things I just mentioned there, with being present and ask questions and know your worth and letting go of what does not make you happy. It's all covered in this interview. Okay, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it is, and it's really, really good. So here we go with Emille Bryant on Unlimited Perspectives. Speaker, author, innovator, Emille Bryant is with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. What an interesting story you have. I can't wait to get into it. But first and foremost, thanks for being with us on the show today.
Bill, it is my pleasure. I'm really happy to be with you today.
If you look up Emille Bryant at Amazon, you will find he is an author of a book that's titled Start with a Sparkle, Press Your Passion, Pursue Your Path, Reach Your Pinnacle, which, boy, one of those would have been plenty, but all three in one book, that's pretty awesome. So I look forward to hearing how we can do that. You have such an interesting personal story yourself, and I want to just do a little bit of history so folks know where you are coming from. Basically, you are somebody who spent a lot of time in the service, and you continue to do that to this day. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. When I was a teenager back in high school, my mother asked me a question that changed my life. And I was only 16, maybe 17 years old, and she said, "How are you paying for college?" I thought for sure I was going to get her help and maybe, we would work out a plan. I was incredibly focused on getting to the Air Force Academy, and I got in. I was a member of the class of 1993, graduated then, and I started my military career. And for the next 20 years, I spent a lion's share of my adult life serving the nation in the Air Force. And in 2012, December of 2012, I retired. I was an aircraft maintenance officer. I was a professional military education instructor. I was a recruiter. I was a logistician. I had many jobs. And so the combination of those jobs and that experience, my mother pushing me as the genesis, how are you paying for college, opened the door to an amazing life. And I just absolutely love what the Air Force did for me and with me and to me in terms of my service to the nation, my experiences, and the fact that I personally grew from a very young man into the man that I am today. And I really appreciate the nation and the Air Force for giving me an opportunity to serve the way I did.
You and I talked before we started the recording that you are still working to serve the country in a contract position with the Veterans Administration, and that's awesome work as well. And we shared a couple of stories about that. I'm really curious how you made that transition from a service position, military Air Force, as you said, into an author of basically what is, self-help, personal growth kind of a book. It's an interesting transition to me. How did you get from A to B?
The thing about being in the Air Force is that every one of us has what we call an Air Force Specialty Code, AFSC. And for the enlisted, the people who come in right after high school without college degrees, the enlisted are all very highly skilled technicians, whether they're in human resources or personnel, or if they're in aircraft maintenance, my field, civil engineering, they're very technically adept. And that's one of the most fascinating and beautiful parts of our military is a young man or a young woman who joins the military will get these fantastic technical education. For those of us who come in as an officer, we're not quite as technically educated. We're not as technically skilled. Our expectation is to lead, manage, and motivate. So the technical training that I had over the course of my career was to lead. I am a skilled leader. That is my fundamental skill set from the military versus being able to fix aircraft or, pave roads or something that has to do with a more tangible skill. Because of that skill set developed over the years, I had an opportunity to learn and do things that were amazing to me. The most valuable of those experiences was teaching at one of the Air Force's premier leadership laboratories. I had a ton of fun there. I spent from 1998 to 2001 in the classroom teaching 13 Air Force captains at a time how to be better leaders. So we actually focus on the skill of leadership as a teachable, tangible skill set that we can impart from one to another. I did that for 3 years and I had so much fun doing it. It was such a fertile time in my life that I fell in love with the concept of leading and teaching leadership. So when I got to a point in my life where I could do something that was more for me and less for the nation after I left the military, I decided that I wanted to impart these leadership lessons, these self-development lessons, these growth lessons in a way that engaged an audience because I was at a crossroads and I knew many of my friends, my children who were going from high school to college and my mother and father who were retiring. We're all going through this crossroads. And I wrote the book for each of those three audiences, my parents, my peers, and my children. And it was a transformative process, again, reaching out and putting down all these ideas about leadership, self-development, personal growth into a book that allowed people to see how my past helped inform how I was going to take my life in the future and maybe help them take their life into their future.
A lot of people who come to this podcast, who come to this Unlimited Perspectives program, are folks who are also in a transition, or as I like to say, they are at a point in their lives where, they reflect on something, whether it's a career or a relationship or even a belief set, and they think to themselves, that old classic line, this just ain't working out. This just isn't, what I had in mind. And so for our listeners, it's all about making what I have come to call new decisions. There was nothing wrong with what you did up to this point, and yet maybe today you make a new decision about trying something different. Like you said, your life has been a kind of an experiment in progress there, a living experiment. And I like that idea. And I'm wondering, as with your book as well, when you talk about pressing passions and pursuing paths, start with someone who might be at that point where it's like, what they're doing is not really serving them. What would you suggest as a first step for somebody looking to make some changes in life, and how do they get on that, start on that path, I suppose?
What I had to do when I wrote the book was I had to embrace a part of myself that had been left, I won't say behind, but had been overlooked. My service to the military required, and one of our core values in the Air Force is service before self. So for over 20 years of my life, I had always placed what the nation needed, what the Air Force needed above what I chose to do or what I wanted. It was a volunteer effort. I chose to live that lifestyle, but there were times when maybe you didn't want to live in Abilene, Texas or Montgomery, Alabama, but that's what the Air Force needed, and you as a volunteer would salute smartly and go. After the military, my crossroad was I finally got to decide for myself what I wanted to do. I didn't have to ask Mother Air Force. I didn't have to ask the government if I could move or if I could live or if I could do. It was completely up to me. And I found myself needing some time to reorganize my life under the principle that what I wanted is what I could do. So after I left the military, which was my last work day was in September of 2012, I spent a month traveling, and I was able to travel around and see a few countries and do some things. And the number one thing that I found out was I had an incredible experience set that was valuable to me and others. I realized this in the stories I shared. As I began to talk to people on my travels, my stories would come out. They were fascinated by my stories. I was happy telling them. And those experiences began to gel in the form of, I have something worthy to share. My experiences and my skills and my contacts began to coalesce in my mind. I can do this for a living, or at least I can express it more tangibly on a regular basis. So anybody who's in a position where they're at a crossroad, the first thing I'm going to say is they need to look back at their skills, back at their experiences, and back at their contact and see what they really have. Because I believe that we've lived enough, even a high school student has lived enough, that there is a rich set of skills, experiences, and contacts that they can draw on to take that next step into their future. And I want people, myself included, to begin to embrace that richness of their past so that when they look forward with an informed and capable mindset that says, look at what I've done. What I can do is unlimited. And then the footstep that you take on that first step, that step is aimed in the general vicinity of something that makes you want to smile and wake up out every morning. And that for me is how I did it. And that's how I encourage other people to do it, is that first step is to look back, assess what you have. And what we often do is we shortchange ourselves. I know we military people often do that because we're told to be service before self and to not be self-promoting and to, don't be a careerist and, work within a team and do well in a team. And one of the things that we have to do after the military is we have to say, well, there's no one who's going to take care of me but me. And so given that we've served and we've done all these things that have just amazing stories behind them, is use those to go forward. And I think every person who's listening to this message, if they did that, will find themselves taking a journey towards something grand.
What stuck out in my ear as you spoke those words was the fact that it doesn't need to be a specific thing. You said step out in the general direction, and those are pretty soft words, and yet the message there is very powerful, to me anyway, because I think so many of us have this belief set or whatever you choose to call it. We believe that we need to be so super specific about what I'm going to do when I grow up, or however you choose to express it. I mean, I'm in my 5th decade. I'm still thinking what I'm going to do when I grow up. But I like your idea of the general direction, because things are going to change. Things are, your preferences, your goals, your intentions, they're going to change. But at least make a step in that general direction and then see what comes.
I completely agree. And this is the part where, as a young man, especially someone who's at least showing type A traits out of high school, going to a very high speed, higher education environment like the Air Force Academy, you have to be goal oriented and mission focused. As a military member, you're goal oriented and mission focused. You have to make it to the next rank. You have to take this course or get your degree. There's always a mission. There's always a goal that you're approaching. And one of the things that we miss when we're often so goal oriented, we're often so mission focused, is the joy of the journey. So after the military, when I had a little time to reflect and look, what I began to see was the power of taking a step in the general direction based on what is true about you. For me, it was delivering this message of helping others become their best self. I didn't know how to phrase it or articulate it back when I was feeling it, when I was teaching. I just knew I lived it and it was good. And that stayed with me from when I left teaching in 2001 through my retirement in 2012. It never left me. It was always there. So part of my leadership skill set is developing the best in each person that I come in contact with. As I see it now, more clearly and more, I can articulate it more clearly. I understand that people have inside them passion and talent. And what I'm trying to do is make sure people understand that when they have their passion and talent in hand, like they understand what it is, that they take a step in that general direction, starting with that sparkle in their eye, hence the name of my book, Start with a Sparkle. And then let that journey take them wherever it may go. Because I don't believe in a linear A, B, C, D life anymore. It's going to be A, R, Q, F, D, W, back to A, B, Z, X, Q, 9. And when we have a life like that, that is just all over the map, but we continually believe and focus on our skills, experiences, and contact, and inquire on every step of the journey, acquire more skills and more experiences and more contacts, then that general direction begins to get more specific. It begins to get more clear where that destination truly lies. You can say, I want to be a doctor. You can say, I want to be a lawyer. But what enriching experiences are going to inform you becoming a doctor or a lawyer? What will the universe deliver to you in terms of experience and contacts and skills? Or maybe there will be a deterrent somewhere in there that you say you want to be a doctor, and then there's this experience that deters you because for the first time you saw the sight of blood and fainted, and that might be the experience that reminds you or informs you that you're not supposed to be a doctor despite what you said you wanted. Those are the things that I think the general direction allows us to absorb and bring into our lives as we get closer and closer toward what it is we're supposed to be and what it is we're supposed to do.
I read on your book, on the description of the book, Start with a Sparkle, that you also brought in the concept of what you call the all-knowing force, which, God, spirit, the force, call it whatever you will. In your opinion, what part does your belief set or your beliefs in a higher power, a higher self, whatever, how does that also play into the path that you choose, or that is, like you said, sometimes those experiences come to you and you decide you're not actually cut out to be a doctor when you faint at the sight of blood. I mean, that's a great example, but sometimes the signs are a little more subtle than that, and yet I think part of the process is being open, observant of the signs and the signals and the hints as they come to us.
100%. I agree. My personal belief is I'm a Christian, but I'm not closed-minded in the sense that I think there's one path for everyone. What I think is the way that God has organized humanity is that he placed in each of us a very specific desire to give something to this world. I call that gift a contribution of color and beauty. And so my fundamental belief is that every individual on this planet has a requirement to develop and to discover, develop, and share their unique contribution that adds color and beauty to this world. For some, they may change literally hundreds of thousands of people's lives. And the Martin Luther Kings and the presidents of the United States and these, Gandhis, these incredibly, larger than life historical figures. Then there are others of us who are going to change one life at a time. We're going to be mentors and parents. We're going to be friends and neighbors. And each one of us, when we deliver our contribution and we add our color and beauty to this world, we are doing what we were designed and made to do. We were not put here to languish. We were not put here as waste. We were not put here as an afterthought. We were put here for a purpose. And each one of us, as we journey through life, should endeavor to discover and share that purpose and make that unique contribution that adds color and beauty to the world. If we each pursue that with our entire being, then the world improves ever so slightly. And each time we add a bit of color and beauty to the world and the world improves ever so slightly, we make a path for others to do what we've done, discover who they are, develop it, and then share it.
As I talk to people, and you may have come across this as well in your speaking and writing, is that a lot of people, okay, maybe 99%, will say that yes, they do want to change something in their life, or they do want to make that bigger contribution, or they do want to discover a more unique personal path for themselves. And yet there's that, for lack of a better term, comfort zone that people might be challenged, would be a nice word, to get out of. And I've even started to say it may not even be comfortable. It may be a job they dislike, a relationship they're unhappy with, and yet they are familiar with it. So I've started using the familiarity zone idea. They're in a familiarity zone and it's tough. It's tough to get out of sometimes simply because it's a routine. It's what they know. It's what they've done, and etc. So my question to you would be, as you speak to people, do you have any words of courage or wisdom or guidance that might help people to at least make the start, to start that search, to make that change that they're seeking in life?
Let's be clear. We've all faced fear, and that for me was real, especially leaving the military. Imagine a young man of 17 years old signing his name on the dotted line to join the military and never seeing civilian employment for 25 years. The only paycheck I knew came from my service in the military. So when I made that transition, I was scared to death. I'll be honest with you. I was scared to death of that transition because I didn't have a job. I didn't have a paycheck, and I didn't want a job right away because I wanted to take some time and discover who I was outside of the context of the military and the uniform. So here I am. I've saved up some money for a few months to take some time off. I wanted to do some travel, and I didn't have any job or even prospects of a job. I say that because your question is relevant. I faced that fear. I know it well. I know what it's like to pound the pavement and look for jobs and get frustrated. But there's something noble in the pain of a life in search of one's best self. And I say pain because not all pain is bad. And we often associate pain with badness. Nike, used to run the campaign, no pain, no gain. You've heard that phrase in workout circles, but there is some truth to it. Not all pain is good and not all pain is bad. But if we embrace the fact that some pain is us growing, then we begin to embrace that pain as the harbinger of change. That pain is it's not the root cause of the problem. It is a symptom of something good happening. So what we have to do is we have to say, in order for me to become my best self, I'm going to have to endure some pain. I can't get fit without some pain. I'm going to just have to endure some pain. The right kind of pain encourages you because you know it will end. It's finite. And once it ends, there will be something greater than that pain that is the reward. And what I had to do was I had to face that pain. And I faced it while I was still in the military. It was scary. And I'm not even joking, because what I had to do was look at a life served in the military. I knew exactly where I was going to live. I knew when the Air Force was going to call on me to move. I knew how much my paycheck was. I knew when I was going to get promoted, if I was going to get promoted. If I got promoted, I knew when I was going to wear the new rank. All that was laid out for me in black and white. And then I had to change that. And I had to say, I'm willing to strike out of the military for a multitude of reasons why I left the military when I did. But the bottom line was, it was a lifestyle that I had to change. So that pain came, and I embraced it. And although it made me shiver, often to my core, I knew there was something greater on the other side of that pain. And listen to me now, anyone who hears, I hope you understand. I had no idea I'd be talking to Bill Sklerdowski on Unlimited Perspectives in April of 2015, when I set out to leave the military, in way back when I made my decision in 2011. I had no idea this was coming. So you can't predict what will happen after the pain subsides. But you also have to realize that if you want change, it will have to come with some level of pain. Again, not all pain is bad, not all pain is good, but we have to be prepared to endure some pain for change.
Well said to someone who has, joined a gym only recently again, and this time is committed to going, making those sometimes painful changes. Yes, it's one of those, gyms with a personal trainer who makes the rounds, and he'll come around and talk to his people like myself, and I have to speak to the young man who's in perfect shape and all that, and he's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm hating you right now." And he goes, "Well, if you don't hate me, I'm not doing my job." I'm like, "Oh, I get it. There's the pain. There's the going through it." But but we both smile about it, because we know, like you said, that there is something better coming to the other side of it, and all you have to do at this point is, embrace it, and okay, maybe just a little bit of that old term, suck it up, and kind of just keep moving, put one foot in front of the other, right?
One of my favorite songs comes from a Christmas special, and that's one of my favorite phrases: just put one foot in front of the other. And if you can do that, then sometimes each step individually may be a bit painful, but the pain subsides, and the bottom line is you're going to see growth from that movement. There is no growth without struggle, and struggle often comes with a bit of pain, and that's okay. I had to deal with it. I dealt with it in the military. I'm dealing with it after the military. But when I look at what I have accomplished and the things that I can do and the people I've helped and the lives I've changed and the folks who call me friend, I can't see how that pain would deter me. I would go through it all again, knowing the results that I've seen. And the results have been when a dear friend calls me and says, "Man, that was awesome, thank you." Or when a friend of mine just calls me up and says, "Man, let's hang out." And that person and I have a bond that we share from years ago that is as if we hadn't been apart. Those moments are just unmatched in my life. And I can't imagine what it would be like without them. And without the pain, I would not have those relationships. Without the pain, I wouldn't have those rewards, those beautiful consequences of being willing to face change and knowing that the pain will not last.
Just to reintroduce our guest, by the way, Emille Bryant is with us. He is a speaker and author. His book on Amazon is Start with a Sparkle, if you're looking for it, and we'll have links to that in our show notes page for this episode, which I will tell everybody about after the interview. But start with a sparkle, press your passion, pursue your path, reach your pinnacle. Emille Bryant is our guest. Typically, I end the show with my 3 quick lightning round questions. One of them I think we've just spent the last few minutes answering, which is starting the process of change can be challenging. So, let's talk about our best words of advice and motivation and inspiration. And I think we just did that, so I won't ask you to repeat that. But in terms of knowing that any pain of change or trying something new or whatever is temporary, and it's the knowingness of the result on the other side that makes it worth the temporary discomfort that you go through at that point. And perhaps just to follow up on that, I'll let you talk about that, but it occurred to me as you were talking that it's also might be a good opportunity to look back And you mentioned looking back earlier in the show as well. Look back on some of the other painful situations that you may have gone through in life, personal, job-wise, career-wise, relationship, whatever, and to see that it turned out okay, that even though it was painful at the time, it led you to a better place. So maybe that's part of the motivation that you can use if you're in a tough spot now.
Concur completely. And, you know, as you were talking, one of the old childhood sayings that I learned growing up is, in the end, everything will be okay. If it's not okay, it's not the end. There were times as a freshman, what we call a dually at the Air Force Academy, and dually is short for the Greek doulos, which means slave. And one of the things about being a dually at the Air Force Academy is that every day seems like a year. Every single day seems like a year. So you either learn how to deal with a very long day or you leave that place. And what I began to learn as a designed skill set is that every day has in it some joy, some pain, but mostly an end. Every day would end. And yes, another day was coming, but that was one day behind me, and I could count down the days until that year ended. And for me, my growth as an individual was accelerated tremendously by having to go through a military academy for an entire year as a first-year student, as a dually at the Air Force Academy, feeling that pain of just having people yell at you and having to follow all these rules and being away from home. It was there. You translate that 20 years later as a man who's soon to leave the military, and every day seems to whiz by. But at the same time, especially if you were to look in my book, you would see that I have a challenge in that I was faced with a boss who made every day excruciating and painful, but every day ended, and every day had some meaning and some purpose behind it as I looked back. And now when I look back at those times as a freshman at the Air Force Academy, or in that job where that boss was literally a hawk who was circling overhead looking for the next thing I did wrong, what I learned was that those days end. And the lessons that I gained from them, if I look at them as days where I learned something, were invaluable.
Again, that's one of my questions there on motivation and staying in touch with where you're at and where you're moving to. One of the other ones, is there perhaps, along with your book, Start with a Sparkle, might there be another book or resource out there that you could recommend to people who are also looking for a little more guidance out there, something that's helped you?
I read a lot, so there's, for me, a ton of resources available to someone who's looking for change in their life. And my book is just one way, and you got to look at it as a many swings of the axe fell the tree. If my book isn't it, there's going to be another one. I went back to some really old writing from Dr. Emmett Fox, who is a preacher, but his message isn't necessarily Christian in terms, it's much more generic and broader than a very narrow focus on the Bible. But he uses the Bible to illustrate some universal principles about intention, about service, about focus, about enduring pain, about understanding how the world and the universe works. And so my favorite book that I've read multiple times is Sermon on the Mount by Dr. Emmett Fox. And a series of essays that he wrote has been collected in a book called Power Through Constructive Thinking. And I would highly recommend anyone, whether you're a Christian or not, take a look at those two books because they help you see yourself in a different light. Create in your own mind the change that you would like to manifest in your daily interaction with others, in your own life. Change how you look at yourself, your perspective on faith and the universe. It all manifests. And I highly encourage people to go back to there. There are many others who have written since he wrote, but for me, those two books were amazingly transformative.
A little paraphrase of Gandhi there, be the change you wish to see in the world. Last, of course, the show title is Unlimited Perspectives. So as a final parting suggestion, what might you offer our listeners to unlimit themselves as they move ahead in life?
Believe that they have in them a contribution so valuable to humanity, it must be discovered, developed, and shared. We often limit ourselves because we think, I'm just a fill in the blank. I'm just a pilot. I'm just a construction worker. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just a secretary. I'm just a doctor. No. Your individual, unique contribution is as valuable as anyone else's. I don't care their stature on this planet. And the day we unlimit ourselves from the belief that I am worth nothing and I have nothing to share is the day we transform our personal life. We can discover our passion and talent. We can develop that passion and talent, and we can share that passion and talent. And when we do those three things, we unlimit ourselves and we add color and beauty to the universe, color and beauty to this planet, and we give our unique and important contribution to humanity.
Terrific. Emille Bryant, author of Start with a Sparkle, Press Your Passion, Pursue Your Path, Reach Your Pinnacle, has been with us. I can't thank you enough. What's next for you, sir?
You know, I have a mission to share what I have and learn what I have to offer. So I'm constantly looking for opportunities to get out from where I am, get outside my comfort zone. As I told you earlier, my life is a petri dish. I'm always adding and taking away ingredients from that petri dish to figure out what works best, what doesn't work at all. So you can expect to see more books and see me speaking around the country over the next year or two. And my goal is to continue to share and help people discover their unique contribution and then develop it and give it back to humanity. You'll see more from me because I'm going to do that a lot.
Blessings and best wishes to you. Emille Bryant, thanks for being with us.
Bill, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This was a great interview for me, and just be well. I really appreciate your show. This is a great forum to get people to think about what's best for themselves and how to share it.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Emille Bryant as much as I did. I found it just very special and very powerful. And I'm already looking forward to when we can have him back on the program again to catch up with him and see how he's doing with his efforts to spread his word. If you're looking for his book, Start with a Sparkle, it is listed on the show notes page for this episode, of course, unlimitedperspectives.com/EP17, episode 17. You know how that works, right? Time now for our next segment, our little nugget of wisdom, a big idea in a little bit of time. And I always try and find something that kind of relates to the main interview. And today it was no problem. I only had to go back to episode 16 with Nada Howarth. She and I talked just a week ago, if you're listening to this in real time. But in episode 16, we talked about the fact that all the things you do in life lead you to where you are right now. And where you are right now is just perfect. That's something I've talked about a lot on this program, if you've listened at all, that everything you do has been a learning experience, a lesson, a bit of guidance, something to get you to where you are today. And, of course, that is only the next step in the journey. So here's Nada talking about how we progress through the changes in life with our little nugget of wisdom, a big idea in a little bit of time.
I totally believe that every experience we have throughout our life is preparing us for the next step and for, that purpose, that passion, that we're going to live. And eventually, we actually live it throughout life as we go along. It just gets bigger and better and better. And even people who think they're totally changing from one thing to another, if they look at the fact, and I know I have myself, I've gone, oh my gosh, I learned this when I was selling donuts back when I was 16. It's like it's so perfect, the way our life plays out and the way, we end up where we're at. So that makes everything you've done perfect, even if it looked bad or awful.
Right. Even if at the moment it was like, man, life could not get any more, awful.
Right. And, that was kind of like the point of your life, the contrast, if you will, that helped you shift into the place that you are now.
So this week on Unlimited Perspectives, episode 17, of course, EP 17, what have we learned? Well, from Emille Bryant, we talked about how his life and so many of our lives are really experiments in progress. We add and subtract the things that we're, trying out, seeing how it works, seeing how we feel about things. And it's all good. It's all an experiment. You find what works, you keep the good stuff, and you release the bad, and you move along. It's okay. One of the things I really liked about what he talked about in the interview was what he called stepping out in the general direction of what you're looking for. I think for so many people, and I'll raise my hand on this one as well, myself included, and lots of other folks that I speak to talk about needing, well, let's put it this way. They're looking for a specific direction to go. What should I do tomorrow when I wake up? Well, life's not that simple, and nobody has those instructions for you. I have some very good friends who are some of the best psychic mediums in the world. They don't know either. So when you do get up in the morning, head out in the general direction of what you think is the path that you'll want to follow your dreams, to follow your passion, whatever. And as things grow and change, well, then more will be shown to you. You'll get more clues and hints. You'll find out exactly where you want to go. And your bigger, better plan will develop over time. It's all good. So I guess this episode is all about trusting the process and allowing for the time for things to happen. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Unlimited Perspectives. Again, thank you so much. I've got a favor to ask of you. And what we want to do is spread the word about the show a little bit. If you haven't yet been to our Facebook page, it's at facebook.com/Unlimited Perspectives. That makes good sense, right? www.facebook.com/Unlimited Perspectives. You'll find the shows all posted there with a blue banner, bit of artwork that shows the picture of the guest and shows, where you can listen to it and all that. Of course, if you've been to Facebook at all, you already know there's the little share button underneath every post. So here's what I'd like to ask you to do, please. If you could, just cruise on over to our Facebook page, again, facebook.com/Unlimited Perspectives, and push that share button underneath the listing for this episode. And that way you can share it to your Facebook page and your friends will see it, and hey, they'll probably thank you for it. So I know I will thank you for it. I'll do that right now. Thanks for helping me spread the word about Unlimited Perspectives. All right, if you have questions or comments, you know the routine. We have a comment section on every page of the website. We have our phone number listed there as well, so feel free to get in touch. Thank you again so much for listening. I'll talk to you again next week. This is Bill Sklerdowski for Unlimited Perspectives, helping keep your mind and spirit unlimited. Have a great week.